The case is based on the matter of an asylum seeker from Sri Lanka named Vijayakumar Turasigam. He told immigration officials he had been abducted, interrogated, and beaten so badly he spent days in a hospital. He escaped Sri Lanka and eventually crossed into the US from Mexico, where he asked for asylum. Immigration officials denied his request and then denied his request to appeal to a higher court. Lawyers for the Sri Lankan man appealed on his behalf, and the case made its way to the Supreme Court.
But he said, even if you're right that Congress has said in the statute that there is no, that I cannot bring this challenge through habeas, the Constitution requires that I be able to bring my claims to a federal court. And the Ninth Circuit said yes, and the Supreme Court today said no.
In denying the case, the justices pointed to a law that says that if a person is seeking asylum, he or she has a right to an interview with an immigration officer or a judge who can make a quick and final decision on their case. Turasigam says his interview lasted 13 minutes. Then the immigration judge refused his request and he was scheduled to be deported. The American Civil Liberties Union stepped in, claiming the expedited deportation limits the asylum seeker's right for a fair court hearing, guaranteed by the Constitution.
They get a very brief look by an administrative judge. Sometimes that hearing lasts 10 minutes, and that's without a court looking at the process. I think what we're looking at as the continuation of asylum seekers being sent back wrongly to persecution and possibly death.
Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito emphasized undocumented immigrants detained close to the border do not have the right to court proceedings. He added the law passed by Congress granted them preliminary consideration, and that was enough.
There's a real sense of his that he thinks that asylum seekers are abusing the credible fear process. There's a real that, you know, he, for example, he suggests that because a relatively small percentage of people who were found to have credible fear, were granted asylum in 2019. And that's somehow evidence that there are lots of fraudulent and frivolous credible fear.
Two of the Supreme Court justices voiced their disagreement. According to them, constitutional rights should not depend on the changing political climate in the U.S. Experts say this decision will create a precedent for thousands of asylum seekers coming to the U.S.
The result of this decision is that there really is no judicial oversight for this fast-track process. So it is, in large part, left in the hands of the immigration officers. And it's a system that is prone to abuses and mistakes because it is fast.
Deputy Solicitor General Edwin Needler, representing the Trump administration, claimed that if the Supreme Court had ruled differently, it would have created a huge judicial backlog and thousands of new cases. It also would have granted undocumented immigrants the right to appeal immigration decisions in federal court. For Anusha Vitisyan in Washington, NRI's VOA News.